Hello, my dear friends. Today I'm sharing my story on a very important topic. Don't waste your time. Time is the most valuable thing we have. Once it's gone, it never comes back. But many of us, including myself, don't realize this until we've already lost a lot of it. I want to open my heart today, not just to tell you what happened in my life, but to remind you how every second matters. If you're someone who often says, I'll do it tomorrow, or I still have time, then this story is for you. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 21 years old, and I'm currently a college student in California, majoring in psychology at a small but respected university in San Diego. I live with my mom, Susan Carter, and my younger brother, Liam, who is 16. My dad, James Carter, passed away when I was 14, and that changed everything for our family. But that's a story for another day. What I'm about to share with you is something I wish I had heard from someone earlier, something that could have saved me years of regret. So, if you're ready to hear a real story from a real person, then let me take you back to the beginning of when I started wasting my time. Back in high school, I was never the smart girl. I wasn't the top of my class, but I wasn't failing either. I stayed somewhere in the middle, doing just enough to get by. My teachers would often say, Emma has potential, but she doesn't push herself. And they were right. I used to think, why should I try so hard when things seem okay the way they are? I spent most of my time watching Netflix, scrolling on Instagram, and texting friends about nonsense. I told myself I was relaxing, but in reality, I was running away. From effort, from growth, from discomfort. I was addicted to comfort. I'd put off assignments till the last minute, tell myself I'd study later, and waste entire weekends doing absolutely nothing productive. I thought I was young and had time, but time moves quietly. It doesn't make noise while it slips away. And one day, you wake up and realize how far behind you are. The wake-up call came in my second semester of college. I had chosen psychology because I've always loved understanding people, but I wasn't serious about it. I still had my lazy habits from high school. I'd skip early morning classes, avoid difficult readings, and copy assignments from classmates. I was living on autopilot, showing up but never really being present. Then came the spring midterm results. I failed 2 subjects. I failed them not because I didn't understand the topics, but because I never even tried to understand them. I didn't study. I didn't revise. I didn't care. When I brought my results home, my mom looked at me with sad, tired eyes. She didn't scream. She didn't yell. She just said one sentence that shook me to the core. Emma, do you know how much time you've wasted pretending this doesn't matter? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was doing with my life. All the hours I spent on TikTok, all the times I said, I'll start tomorrow. They all came rushing back. I had no excuse. I had no one to blame. It was just me and my choices. And then I remembered something my dad once told me before he passed. If you take care of the minutes, the years will take care of themselves. Back then, I didn't understand it, but now it made perfect sense. I had ignored every minute, and the years had slipped through my fingers like water. That was the turning point. I made a decision that night. No more wasting time. I started small. I deleted Instagram for a month. It was hard at first. My fingers would automatically reach for the app, only to find it gone. I replaced that habit by reading for 30 minutes every day. Real books, not textbooks. Books about discipline, focus, mindset. One of the first books I read was Atomic Habits by James Clear. That book changed everything for me. It taught me that tiny habits can create big results if you stay consistent. Next, I made a study schedule. Not too tight, but realistic. I started waking up at 6:30 a.m. every day. I joined a study group led by a girl named Priya, one of the smartest students in our class. At first, I felt like I didn't belong there, but I stayed. Slowly, my confidence grew. I remember one day, during a group session, Priya looked at me and said, "Emma, your questions are actually really insightful." That meant more to me than any grade ever could, because for the first time, I felt like I was actually learning, not just for the exams, but for me. In the summer of that year, I took up a part-time internship at a counseling center. I met real people with real problems: teenagers struggling with depression, women escaping abusive relationships, kids with trauma. That experience changed the way I looked at time completely. I realized that every hour I wasted was an hour I could have been helping someone, making a difference, becoming the version of myself I always wanted to be. Today, I'm in my third year of college. I still get distracted sometimes. I'm not perfect, but I don't waste time like before. I value it, I respect it. I've learned to say no to things that steal my attention. I've learned to sit with discomfort. I've learned to work when I don't feel like it. And most importantly, I've learned that your future is built with the time you're wasting right now. If you're reading this and you're still stuck in that place where procrastination feels normal, I want you to know, it doesn't have to stay that way. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to suddenly become someone else. You just need to start, right now, not tomorrow, not after this show. Now I want to leave you with a little list I made for myself a year ago. I keep it stuck on my wall, and I read it every morning. Wake up with purpose. Do one hard thing before 9 a.m. Say no to things that don't help your goals. Spend more time creating than consuming. Use your phone like a tool, not a toy. Every second is either an investment or a waste. Choose wisely. I'm Emma Carter, and I wasted a lot of time. But I got it back. Not the time itself, but the version of me who respects it. As Emma continued with her new daily English habits, something amazing started to happen. People noticed. At work, her boss, Mr. David Nelson, who usually overlooked her during meetings, suddenly began asking for her opinions. Emma used to sit quietly in team discussions, too afraid she'd mess up her words. But now, with her consistent self-practice and thinking in English, she found the courage to speak up. One day, during a team meeting, she confidently said, "I believe we should test the product with a smaller group before launching it widely. It might reduce the risk and help us collect better feedback." Everyone turned and looked at her. There was a moment of silence, and then Mr. Nelson nodded. "That's a good point, Emma. Let's consider that." Her heart raced, not from fear, but from excitement. It was working. Her daily habits were making a difference. Her English friends and the Turning Point one afternoon, Emma received a message on a language exchange app from a girl named Lily James, a university student from Seattle, Washington. Lily was learning Spanish and wanted to exchange English conversations in return. They started chatting every weekend on video call. At first, Emma was nervous, but Lily was kind and friendly. They laughed a lot, corrected each other gently, and became close friends. Lily said something that stuck with Emma. "Fluency is not about speaking fast or using big words. It's about being understood and expressing your thoughts clearly." That sentence gave Emma so much relief. She stopped trying to sound perfect and focused instead on being natural and clear. Emma's habit tracker. Emma loved organizing her day, so she started using a simple habit tracker, just a notebook where she ticked off each habit she completed daily. It included thought in English for 10 minutes, spoke out loud, even if just 3 sentences. Listened to a podcast. Read one article, wrote in her journal, practiced 15 minutes conversation. Each day she did it. She drew a smiley face beside the date. It was her way of celebrating small wins. She saw that fluency didn't require hours of study. It needed consistency, not perfection. Helping her friend Olivia. One day, her childhood friend Olivia Parker, who lived in Chicago, called her and confessed, "Emma, I'm so stuck. I need to pass an English interview next month. I freeze every time I try to speak." Emma smiled and said, "Olivia, I used to feel the same. But listen, it's not about being perfect. I'll help you. Let's practice together." They made a plan. Every evening, they would talk for 20 minutes in English. They would role-play interviews and casual conversations. Emma would give feedback and share her own learning strategies. After just 2 weeks, Olivia sent her a voice note, excited. "Emma, I got the job." The manager said I spoke clearly and confidently. "You've changed my life," Emma cried. Not just because she helped her friend, but because she realized her journey wasn't just about improving herself, it was about empowering others too. Unexpected opportunity. 3 months later, Emma received an email from her company's HR team. They were launching a global mentorship program for new international employees, and they wanted her to lead the English communication workshops. Emma's first thought was, "Me? Teach others?" But then she remembered who she had become. She replied with one word, "Yes." And on the first day of the workshop, when she stood in front of 20 nervous new employees, some from India, Brazil, China, and Egypt, she smiled and said, "I know how you feel. I was in your place. And I promise, with small daily habits, everything will change." They listened. They believed her. A few weeks later, Emma Carter felt a flutter of excitement mixed with nerves. She had been invited by her colleague, Michael Lopez, to speak briefly at the company's weekly team huddle. Michael was a native speaker, warm, encouraging, and he'd noticed Emma's steady progress. On that crisp Monday morning in New York, Emma arrived at the office early, clutching her notes. She reminded herself of the habits she'd cultivated. Think in English. Speak out loud. Embrace mistakes. Michael spotted her in the conference room. "Hey, Emma. Ready to wow everyone?" he asked with a grin. Emma smiled back, her confidence buoyed by months of practice. "I'll do my best, Michael. Thanks for believing in me." When the huddle began, Emma stood up. Her heart pounded, but she took a deep breath and launched into her short presentation. "Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to share our Q2 social media engagement results and some ideas for improvement." Her voice was clear, her sentences flowing more naturally than ever. Midway, she stumbled on a phrase. "I'm proposing we leverage our Instagram stories more effectively." Her tongue twisted around leverage. She paused, then gently repeated, "I mean, use Instagram stories more." The room chuckled warmly. Michael gave her an encouraging nod. Emma pressed on, finishing strong. At the end, her manager, Sarah Nguyen, applauded. "Great insights, Emma, and great English." Emma's relief turned to joy. She realized that making mistakes didn't derail her, it made her human and relatable. That afternoon, Emma celebrated with a walk through Central Park. She narrated to herself, "I'm really proud of myself today. I handled that presentation well." A jogger passed and said, "Nice work out there." Emma grinned and replied out loud, "Thanks. It's a beautiful day for a run, isn't it?" The jogger smiled and kept going. Emma laughed to herself. Her small English conversation felt like a victory lap. Over the next month, Emma deepened her immersion. Weekend meetup with friends. Every Saturday, she met Michael, David Chen, and Priya Patel at a local cafe. They chatted only in English about movies, books, and weekend plans. Priya, originally from Mumbai, shared tips on idioms. David, a New Jersey native, taught her slang like hang out and chill. Volunteer tutoring. Emma volunteered at a community center in Queens, helping recent arrivals practice English. Teaching others reinforced her own skills. She discovered that explaining basic grammar to beginners made her understand it more deeply. Book club. She joined an English book club at the Brooklyn Public Library. Their latest read was The Great Gatsby. Discussing Fitzgerald's prose challenged her to use richer vocabulary, words like opulent, transcendent, and disillusionment. One Wednesday evening, Emma sat with Michael on a bench overlooking the East River. The sun was setting, and the skyline glowed orange. Michael asked, "Emma, what's been the biggest change for you?" Emma thought for a moment. "I think my mindset. I've stopped seeing English as a chore and started seeing it as part of my life. When I wake up, it's in English. When I sleep, I recall my day in English. It's who I am now." Michael nodded. "That's huge. You've internalized it. English isn't just a skill, it's part of your identity." Emma smiled. "Exactly. And every day, I feel a little braver." By the time spring arrived in full bloom, Emma's progress was undeniable. She no longer translated sentences in her head. Instead, she dreamed in English, vivid conversations with friends, imagined travel to London, and even imagined herself giving presentations abroad. One sunny Friday, Emma received an email. The corporate office in Chicago wanted her to lead a virtual workshop on social media strategy. Her heart raced, not out of fear this time, but anticipation. She accepted. On the day of the workshop, Emma logged on from her apartment, the Manhattan skyline behind her window. Colleagues from Chicago, San Francisco, and Austin joined. Emma greeted them warmly. "Good morning from New York. I'm Emma Carter, and I'll be guiding you through today's session on boosting engagement." Her fluency felt effortless. She navigated questions, explained complex ideas, and shared anecdotes from her own journey. At one point, a participant asked, "Emma, what's your top tip for non-native English speakers to sound more natural?" Emma's eyes lit up. She shared, "Incorporate English into everything you do. Think in English, speak in English, even to yourself. Surround yourself as much as possible with the language. That constant exposure builds your confidence and your fluency." She saw nods around the virtual room. When the workshop ended, colleagues flooded the chat with praise. "Fantastic presentation, Emma. Your English is impeccable. Thank you for such clear, engaging tips." Emma leaned back, her heart full. Every habit she had built, thinking in English, speaking out loud, listening, reading, writing, and connecting with others, had led to this moment. That evening, Emma called her parents in Boston on FaceTime. "I led a workshop today," she exclaimed. Her mother beamed. "We're so proud of you, Emma." Her father added, "You've come so far, sweetheart." Emma knew they were right. As Emma prepared for bed, she reflected on her journey. What had started as a simple decision to weave English into her daily life had become a transformative path. She whispered to herself, "I did it, Emma. And tomorrow, I'll keep going." Emma woke up the next morning feeling a familiar flutter of excitement. Yesterday's small wins, thinking in English first thing, narrating her breakfast, catching a new idiom on a podcast, had given her motivation to push further. As sunlight filtered through her curtains in Brooklyn, she whispered to herself, "Let's make today even better," and immediately began planning. She grabbed her phone and switched on an English news briefing. While brushing her teeth, she repeated each headline aloud, paying attention to the intonation of the anchors. When she heard a traffic reporter say, "Expect delays on the Brooklyn Bridge this morning," Emma paused, smiled, and said, "Expect delays on the Brooklyn Bridge this morning," until it rolled off her tongue effortlessly. On the subway ride to her job at a local marketing firm, Emma opened her notebook and reviewed the 10 new words she'd learned over the past week. Ubiquitous, resilient, momentum, salient, nuance, inadvertent, meticulous, candid, versatile, and glean. Instead of rote memorization, she'd written each word in a sentence from her own life. My morning routine has become meticulous, down to the second I leave the house. I try to be candid with my colleagues during brainstorming sessions. By using personal context, Emma found it impossible to forget their meanings. At work, she'd volunteered to lead the afternoon team huddle, a big step outside her comfort zone. As her colleagues filtered in, Emma took a deep breath and greeted them. "Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'd like to share some insights from last week's campaign analytics." Her voice wavered for a moment, but she pressed on. With each slide she presented, charts, bullet points, recommendations, her confidence grew. When she stumbled over analytics, she smiled, corrected herself, and continued without skipping a beat. After the meeting, her manager, Tom, said, "Great job, Emma. You were clear, concise, and very engaging." Emma beamed. She'd just transformed nervous energy into authentic expression. That evening, instead of collapsing on the couch, Emma set up a video call with her conversation partner, Javier, from Madrid. They'd been meeting twice a week for a month. Their calls started with casual chatter. "How was your weekend?" But soon evolved into role plays, ordering at a restaurant, negotiating a freelance project, even debating lighthearted topics like, which is better, tea or coffee? Javier always challenged her. Use a more sophisticated alternative to good, maybe superb or exceptional. She would pause, smile, and try again. The coffee at that cafe was exceptional. These gentle corrections sharpened her vocabulary. After dinner, Emma curled up with her latest reading choice, a short story by Jhumpa Lahiri, written in English. She underlined passages that resonated, moments of cultural tension, vivid descriptions of autumn light in New England, and she noted how Lahiri's economy of language conveyed deep emotion. Inspired, Emma opened her journal and wrote a brief reflective piece. The way the sunlight filtered through the maple leaves in Lahiri's story reminded me of my own childhood autumns in Queens. I can still feel that crisp air on my face. By connecting personally to what she read, she cemented new sentence structures and idioms in her mind. On Thursday, Emma decided to mix in some creative fun. She joined an online poetry workshop conducted entirely in English. Nervous at first, she submitted a four-line poem about city life. Horn blasts echo off steel and glass. The river's whisper lost beneath the fray. Yet in the dawn's soft amber pass, I find my tongue and words convey. When the facilitator praised her imagery, "You've captured contrast and hope so vividly," Emma realized that creativity, too, was a path to fluency. By Friday, a pattern emerged: mornings of active listening and self-talk, commutes filled with vocabulary review, work opportunities to speak, evenings dedicated to reading, writing, and conversation. Each habit reinforced the others, weaving into a seamless tapestry of practice. 2 months into her journey, Emma received an exciting invitation to represent her firm at an intercompany workshop in Chicago. The role required her to deliver a keynote-style talk to an audience of international colleagues. Instead of panic, she felt exhilaration. She saw this as the ultimate test of her new habits. Over the next 3 weeks, Emma rehearsed daily. She scripted her talk in English, recorded herself on her phone, and critiqued her pronunciation. She practiced in front of her roommate, Sarah, who playfully pretended to be a tough corporate audience. When Emma misused a phrase, "synergize our paradigms," Sarah would chuckle and suggest, "Maybe just say, work together here." They laughed, corrected, and refined. On the day of the workshop, April 15th, 2025, at the Hyatt Regency Chicago, Emma stood behind the podium. Her heart pinged, but she began, "Hello, I'm Emma Carter from our New York office. Today, I'm honored to discuss how we can foster creativity through cross-functional collaboration." Her voice was steady, her phrasing clear. She seamlessly transitioned from one point to the next, eliciting nods and smiles. During Q&A, she answered complex questions, drawing on vocabulary and idioms she'd practiced. Afterward, attendees approached her. "Your perspective was enlightening. I appreciated your anecdotes. You spoke so naturally." Back in her hotel room, Emma reflected. She remembered the morning when she first forced herself to think in English, the shaky subway narrations, the tentative meeting presentation, the late-night journal entries, the playful poetry workshop. Each small habit, when done consistently, had led to this moment of triumph. Emma realized that language learning isn't a sprint, it's a steady climb. There will always be new expressions to learn, accents to decipher, cultural nuances to grasp. But with daily practice, listening, speaking, reading, writing, and infusing joy into the process, anyone can ascend. As she packed her bags to return to New York on April 16th, Emma whispered a promise to herself. "I will keep going. Tomorrow, I'll start a new habit. Maybe English stand-up comedy. Why not?" And with that playful thought, she smiled, ready for the next chapter of her English journey. As the weeks went by, Emma Carter began to notice subtle but powerful shifts in the way she approached English. One crisp Tuesday morning, as she stood in line at her favorite local cafe in Brooklyn, she caught herself silently narrating the scene. I'm standing behind a man in a blue coat. He's checking his phone. The barista is wiping down the counter. When it was her turn, she looked up and, with a steady voice, placed her order. Hi there. Could I please get a medium latte with oat milk? Her pronunciation felt smooth, and the barista, surprised at her clear, confident tone, smiled warmly and replied, Sure thing. That'll be $4.50. Emma thanked her, saying, Thank you so much, without the slightest hesitation. In that moment, she realized how far she'd come from the days when she'd stumble over latte as if it were a foreign code. That afternoon, Emma sat at her favorite spot by the window in her apartment. She opened her notebook, where she'd been jotting down new words every day, and flipped back a few pages. Serendipity, the occurrence of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. Eloquent, fluent or persuasive in speaking or writing. Intricate, very complicated or detailed. She paused and wrote sentences of her own. It was pure serendipity that I discovered this quaint cafe. Her explanation of grammar rules was so eloquent. The design on the vase was intricate and beautiful. By crafting her own sentences, Emma made each word stick in her mind, weaving them into her personal story. That evening, she joined her weekly conversation group online. A small circle of learners from around the world gathered on Zoom. Tonight's theme was travel dreams, and Emma shared, I dream of visiting San Francisco next spring. I want to walk across the Golden Gate Bridge, visit Alcatraz Island, and taste all the sourdough bread. Another member, Luis from Spain, complimented her vivid description, and Emma felt a warm glow of pride. She listened attentively as others spoke. She noted how one participant used the phrase to soak in the atmosphere and immediately added it to her mental vocabulary. On Thursday, Emma decided to challenge herself further. She switched off English subtitles while watching a new Netflix series. At first, she paused a lot, rewinding lines. Wait, did she just say cut to the chase? She smiled, impressed by herself for pushing past the comfort of subtitles. By the end of the episode, she'd picked up 3 idioms and even guessed their meanings from context. That weekend, Emma went to a meetup at a local bookstore for English-language book lovers. The group was discussing To Kill a Mockingbird, and Emma, who'd read it in class years ago, eagerly raised her hand. I think Atticus Finch represents moral courage because he stands up against prejudice, even when it's unpopular. Her comment sparked a lively debate. As she spoke, she paid attention not just to her own words, but to the flow of the conversation, the natural give and take, the questions, the approving nods. She realized that good conversation is part language skill, part active listening, and part genuine curiosity. On Sunday evening, Emma reflected on her month of dedicated habits. She opened her journal and wrote, Today marks 1 month since I started living in English. I feel more confident, more curious, and more connected to the world. She closed her eyes and let herself smile. Emma knew this was just the beginning. By making English a living part of her daily routine, through cafe chats, notebook scribbles, group discussions, and Netflix marathons, she was not only improving her language skills, but also discovering new facets of herself. And so, Her journey continued, one habit, one sentence, one conversation at a time, propelling Emma Carter ever closer to the fluency and confidence she'd once only dreamed of. As Emma's journey continued, she began to weave these habits seamlessly into each part of her day, almost as naturally as brushing her teeth or tying her shoelaces. Let me take you through a typical weekday in Emma Carter's life to show you how each habit comes alive in practice. It's 7 a.m. in her cozy apartment in Manhattan. Emma wakes up to the gentle chime of her alarm. Before she even opens her eyes, she stretches and thinks, "Good morning, Emma. Today is Thursday, April 24th, 2025. I'm going to have a productive day." She mentally reviews her schedule in English, her 9 a.m. team meeting at the marketing firm, a lunch video call with her conversation partner from London, and an evening jog in Central Park. She rolls out of bed and heads to the kitchen, narrating out loud, "Now I'm making my favorite oatmeal, almond milk, cinnamon, a handful of blueberries." As she measures the oats, she mentally labels the items around her: spoon, bowl, stove, sink. Over breakfast, she flips on an English language podcast. Today, it's an episode of This American Life, and listens attentively, jotting down 2 new phrases in her notebook: to kick things off and a silver lining. Later, she'll practice using those phrases in sentences of her own. By 8:15, she's dressed and ready. On her commute, instead of scrolling through her native language news app, Emma opens a Medium article about sustainable fashion. She reads silently, then, when the subway is less crowded, reads a paragraph out loud to practice pronunciation and intonation. Fellow passengers sometimes glance over, but she's too engrossed in mastering that tricky sound to care. At 9 a.m., she logs into her Zoom meeting. Her manager, Jason Thompson, comments on this quarter's ad campaign. Emma listens, and, when invited to share her ideas, she draws upon the vocabulary she's been reinforcing. "I think we could pivot our messaging to highlight eco-conscious consumers. That could be our silver lining, given the current market trends," she says confidently. Her colleagues nod appreciatively. Emma realizes she rarely feels tongue-tied anymore. After the meeting, she texts her conversation partner, George, who lives in London. Emma: "Hey George, how's your morning? Ready for our 12:30 chat?" George: "Hi Emma, all set." You? Emma: "Absolutely. I'm excited to discuss that article on mindfulness we both read." At 12:30, they hop on a call. George begins by asking Emma to summarize the article in English. Emma says, "The author explains how simple breathing techniques can reduce stress by up to 20%. She suggests allocating 5 minutes a day to mindful breathing, just focusing on the inhale and exhale." George compliments her clarity and corrects a minor grammar slip, allocating 5 minutes a day instead of "I allocate." Emma thanks him. "Thanks, George. I'll remember that phrasing." After lunch, Emma spends 20 minutes on a language exchange app, chatting with a Mexican student named Lucia. They talk about weekend plans. Lucia practices her English. Emma practices her Spanish. They joke, "If we keep this up, we'll each become bilingual by next holiday." The laughter lightens any residual fatigue from the morning. Later in the afternoon, Emma takes a short break to play an English crossword puzzle online. She grins when she finally fills in the six-letter word thrive, knowing she'll add it to her notebook. Then it's back to work, drafting an email to a potential client in Chicago. She composes, "Hello, Mr. Bennett. I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to follow up regarding our proposal. Please let me know if you have any questions." She rereads it out loud to check flow and clarity. Satisfied, she hits send. By 6 p.m., her workday wraps up. She laces up her sneakers for a jog in Central Park. While she runs, she narrates her surroundings. "I'm passing the Bethesda fountain. The sky is painted pink and orange at sunset. A couple is walking their dog over there." This keeps her mind active in English, even during exercise. Back home, Emma prepares dinner, stir-fry tofu with veggies, and follows a YouTube cooking video in English. She listens, pauses, repeats the chef's instructions. Now, add the garlic and sauté until fragrant. She smiles as her apartment fills with the delicious aroma. At 8:30 p.m., she settles onto her couch with a novel by Celeste Ng, reading a chapter in English. She highlights a beautiful sentence. "Grief is a strange companion. It visits often, but never stays." She closes the book and spends a few minutes reflecting. "I wish I could write like that one day." She then opens her journal and writes a short paragraph about her day in English, paying attention to using past tense correctly. "I listened to a podcast, completed my project, and enjoyed a refreshing jog." Finally, before bed, Emma films a quick 3-minute voice note to herself. She started recording weekly reflections. Tonight, she says, "This week, I really improved my confidence in meetings. I used 2 new phrases I learned, and I felt proud." She listens back and notes one pronunciation area to work on tomorrow. Then, with a sense of accomplishment, she turns off the lights. Over the following weeks, Emma's progress accelerates. She notices friends commenting on her clearer pronunciation and more natural word choice. A month later, during a client presentation, she seamlessly integrates phrasal verbs like to ramp up and to drill down, phrases she'd picked up casually from podcasts. Looking back, Emma realizes that none of this would have been possible without making English part of her everyday life, without thinking, speaking, listening, reading, writing, and playing in English every single day. Each tiny habit compounded until it became a transformational force in her fluency and confidence. If you, like Emma, weave these simple practices into your routine, wake up thinking in English, narrate your world out loud, listen and read what you love, write reflectively, seek conversation partners, embrace mistakes, and surround yourself with the language, you'll find that fluency isn't some distant dream. It's a natural outcome of small, consistent actions. That evening, Emma Carter sat back on her couch, the soft glow of her desk lamp illuminating her open notebook. It had been a long but rewarding day filled with English practice, from the moment she woke up until now. As she reflected, she realized how naturally those everyday habits had woven themselves into her life. "Let me think back through today," she murmured to herself, and began recounting each moment. Morning reflections over coffee. At 7 a.m., Emma brewed her first cup of coffee, narrating each step aloud. I'm scooping 2 tablespoons of coffee grounds. Now I'm pouring hot water slowly. This simple narration not only warmed her hands, but also warmed her confidence. By the time she took her first sip, she'd already practiced several useful phrases: freshly brewed, aromatic, strong enough. Even her cat, Milo, seemed to listen intently as she cooed, "Good morning, Milo. Time for breakfast." On the subway, podcasts and mental notes. During her 20-minute subway ride to her junior design position at an architecture firm in Manhattan, Emma plugged in her earphones and listened to a podcast episode titled Fluent in 5 Minutes. Ironically, it ran closer to 15. She paused occasionally to jot down idioms she hadn't encountered before, like think outside the box and hit the ground running. Later, when a friend asked how the morning meeting went, she seamlessly dropped in, "We hit the ground running on the new project," and saw her colleagues nod in understanding. Midday luncheon with a twist. At noon, she met her friend, David Lewis, at a small deli near Union Square. Instead of ordering in her head in her native tongue, Emma told the server directly in English, "I'd like the grilled chicken wrap with extra avocado, please." When David asked why she was so deliberate, she laughed. "I'm training myself not to translate. It feels odd, but it works." David teased her. "Do you even think in English now?" She winked. "Almost. At least I'm not pausing mid-sentence anymore." Afternoon brainstorm. Voice memos and self-correction back at her desk at 2:30 p.m. Emma had to pitch an interior concept for a coworker. Before the meeting, she quietly recorded herself on her phone. "Today, I'm presenting the open plan lounge design. I want to emphasize natural light." She played it back, noticed she'd pronounced emphasize more like emphasize, paused, and repeated it correctly. By the time she stood in front of the room, her intonation was clear and confident. Evening meetup. Language exchange over video call. At 6 p.m., Emma logged into her weekly video chat with her language partner, Sophia Martinez, who lives in Miami. They spent 30 minutes talking about their weekends. Emma described her flea market find. "I picked up a vintage lamp that adds character to my living room." When Sophia corrected her use of character, Emma smiled and immediately repeated the sentence, "It adds character to my living room." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, peppered with laughter and shared slang. "Cool, awesome, that's lit." Nightly journaling and self-review by 9 p.m., Emma settled at her desk once more. This time, she opened her journal to write about the day. "Today, I practiced thinking in English first thing in the morning. My podcast commute introduced me to 2 new idioms, and I used both during lunch. In the afternoon, I recorded my pitch and corrected my pronunciation. My call with Sophia was full of fun banter, and I even managed to negotiate slang without hesitation." She paused to underline "negotiate slang," a playful note to herself, and then reviewed her pages, circling any grammar points she wanted to revisit. Late night reading and relaxation. Before bed, Emma read a short story by an American author, just a few pages. She highlighted phrases that resonated with her, like, "A hush fell over the crowd," and "her heart fluttered." She closed the book, whispered each phrase aloud, and felt the cadence of the sentences settle comfortably on her tongue. As Emma turned off her lamp at 11 p.m., she smiled, thinking how far she'd come from when speaking English felt like climbing a mountain. Each informal habit, narrating actions, listening on the go, speaking out loud, embracing mistakes, had combined into a powerful daily routine. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring the same small but meaningful practices. A fresh podcast episode, another coffee time monologue, more conversations with friends, and a bit of journaling under the page-worn glow of her desk lamp. And that, dear friend, is how everyday habits to improve your English become more than just tasks. They become the threads that weave English seamlessly into the beautiful tapestry of your daily life. Keep going, just like Emma Carter, and you'll find that fluency isn't a destination, but a journey taken one small habit at a time.